In case you missed it, here's Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.
All right, let's try and figure all this out because it's a pretty big thing. 4 kids in Maryland were caught driving around in 2 different stolen cars last week. They were teenagers, and 2 adults were with them, an 18-year-old and a 21-year-old. Turned out they had also just stolen stuff from a nearby store.
So they were arrested, and the 2 adults were tossed in jail. 4 kids charged as juveniles. So that's 6 arrests. But we're just getting started. The kids had to get picked up at jail by a guardian. Well, when the guardian showed up, the car she was in was also stolen. There were 3 women in it, and a guy was driving, and cops thought that it might be a stolen vehicle because the back window was smashed out.
That'd be kind of indicative of maybe something's going on. So after the 3 women got dropped off, police tracked down the car and arrested 4 more people inside it, the driver and 3 other teenagers. Meanwhile, the 3 women who got dropped off at the jail also got arrested.
So if you've lost count, here's the final tally. 13 people in total were arrested, 7 juveniles, 6 adults, and they all apparently knew each other and were between the ages of 13 and 21. Now, not clear what the guardian situation was all about. Did these older siblings show up claiming to be the guardian and to, break their siblings out of jail, or what was going on? But
it makes you wonder if it was a stolen car ring or a wannabe one, because police say all 3 of the stolen cars were Hyundais.
Apparently, they're being stolen a lot right now because there is something going around on social media that shows how easy they are to steal. So people are doing it.
So interesting to note with this. I wonder if it was a group of people that they were all working together in this situation. So 13 people now facing charges.
Yum, science. It's not rocket science.
Check it out. I blinded us with science.
Engineers at the University of Waterloo have created a way to program robots to help people find lost items like medicine, phones, and glasses.
So specifically, this project wants to help people with dementia to be able to achieve more independence. So the engineers used artificial intelligence to create an episodic memory for the robot. So when the robot sees specific items through its camera, it remembers the location. So the patients can then just enter the name of the object they're looking for into an app, and then the robot will guide them to it. The name of the robot, by the way, is Fetch.
I love everything about this story. Congratulations to those engineers at the University of Waterloo. The World Health Organization advises against using sweeteners for long-term weight loss. So new guidelines are based on a review of a bunch of different studies in different countries that suggest that sweeteners do not help reduce body fat, and long-term use can even increase the risk of diabetes and heart disease. So they're talking about aspartame, saccharin, stevia, and stevia derivatives. So instead of using sweeteners, what they suggest is either consuming unsweetened foods or drinks, who wants to do that, or eating food with naturally occurring sugar.
It always makes me laugh when they talk about some of these sweeteners. And they're like, oh, it's derived from plants. And I'm like, where do you think sugar comes from? Plants.
It's just that sugar is in so many foods that we consume. You got to be careful with that.
Exactly. A recent study published offers some hope for kids who have peanut allergies. Over 300 kids between the ages of 1 and 3 tested this new patch, which is hoping to offer them protection against peanut proteins. So 2/3 of the kids who wore the patch were desensitized and could actually tolerate up to 4 peanuts. And I say, amazingly, not only did it raise the amount of peanut tolerance in these kids, but the nature of the reaction also changed. So they might still have a reaction, but it wasn't as severe. It was more like, just having some hives on the skin instead of having to, take a full EpiPen.
Hey, a Florida professor by the name of Joseph Dituri has spent 74 days underwater and plans to stay another 26 to make it a full 100 living in an undersea lodge. He's staying at the Jules Undersea Lodge in Key Largo as part of what they're calling Project Neptune. So here he is talking to middle school class about being underwater.
I do biomedical research. So I did a whole bunch of blood, urine, and saliva testing beforehand. Then I'm doing a whole bunch while I'm down here. We'll do a whole bunch afterwards. We're looking for lines, trend lines, right? Are you getting better? Or are you getting worse? We know that when you stay on the International Space Station for a year, that you get taller. Why? There's no gravity compressing you down. I am underwater. I am being overly compressed. I will probably be an inch shorter when I come up. We'll see.
Isn't that interesting?
So how deep is he down there?
I don't know, 7 or 8 miles.
Because I've seen
he's not.
I've seen some of these hotel rooms that are in like exotic places like Tahiti, that kind of thing, where you can sleep underwater. So is it that kind of a place?
He's in a 100 square foot room is what he's in. So
that's not very
similar
big
to that, but yeah, not a whole lot of space down there. That'd be a little confining. It'd be interesting the first couple of days, and I'd be like, no, I'm over it. Bring me up now. You're probably doing it anyway, so why not get paid for it? There's a company called Ubiquitous that does brand marketing on social media, and they're offering to pay 3 people $100 an hour to watch TikTok.
So before you get too excited, this is a one-off. It's not a full-time gig. But if you're one of the people that they do pick, you'll make a nice chunk of change in one day. They're going to pay 3 people $1,000 to go on a 10-hour TikTok binge. They say it's to help the company, quote, discover emerging new trends, but sounds more like a gimmick just to get their name out there. So you can apply online through their website. You just have to fill out an application, describe why you're a good fit. You also have to subscribe to their YouTube channel. And they say you can also up your chances if you tag them in a tweet about why you're perfect for the gig.
And I was checking it out, and it's open to anyone around the world. So it's not just a U.S. contest. So you could go to their website and apply.
Sorry, kids, you have to be over 18 and already familiar with TikTok and also have an eye for trends. But the deadline is coming up at the end of the month. But I don't know about you. I feel like my mental health after 10 hours on TikTok would be down the drain. I mean, it goes like that after I'm just going to go on there for 5 minutes. 30 minutes later, I'm just like still on there.
Well, and depending upon what kind of videos you're watching, you can be laughing 1 minute, or if you're watching one from Zach Denarowski, who we're going to talk about after 7, MD Motivator, then you're crying. So you go from one to the other. I don't know if I could do that for 10 hours, but someone will, or at least 3 people will, and they'll get a nice chunk of change for it. We've got some great animal stories for you this morning about rabbits, bulls, whales, and gators.
Our first story is about an aggressive rabbit that has now bitten at least 2 people in a town in Iowa.
It just jumps up and bites me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I just got bit by a bunny. It came around to her car, and it wouldn't let her out of her car. Well, when she did get out of her car, it chased her up to her door. The Perry Police Department said it's been a rabbit that's been around. I'm not worried about rabies, because when it bit me, I didn't see it frothing out the mouth.
Well, I'd still go get checked.
I would still go get the rabies shots.
That's kind of unusual behavior for a rabbit.
Yes. All I could think is this like the rabbit version of Cujo? From the Stephen King novel.
I mean, bring a dog around. If the rabbit runs the other way, then it's just having a bad day. But if it starts to go after the dog, it's a bad thing. So
police say they did catch the rabbit, and for some reason they released it at the local wastewater treatment plant. I guess so it can terrorize the workers there instead.
Yes, so. A rugby game in France was interrupted recently when a bull escaped from the pre-match parade and ran out onto the field.
Who thought that having the bull in the parade was a good idea?
The bull was caught on camera dragging its handler across the grass. Players were recorded running from the animal and jumping over signs to avoid getting hit. The bull was eventually wrangled. And by the way, the one team beat the other team in that game once they got it rolling again.
Apparently someone's been watching the movie Ferdinand too much, and they think bulls are cute and friendly.
And thought it might be a fun thing to bring them out to a soccer match.
How about this? Did you know killer whales can actually mimic the sound of our voices?
Hello? Hello?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That's funny. Wow. I mean, I guess just about any animal. I mean, we got a bird, and I was able to teach the bird a few things. She mimics by whistling.
Well, haven't they shown that cats don't meow at each other? They only meow at us, at humans.
They've realized over the years that it was something pleasing to humans. And finally, police in a place called Treasure Island Beach tried to round up a large gator, but found it really wasn't a gator. It was a sculpture made of sand. So a video shows the police officer poking the tail and discovering it was a very realistic work of art.
Oh.
He said, quote, we love the talented people creating works of art in the sand, but with it being turtle nesting season, remember to flatten out those sand castles and sculptures before you leave. One commenter said the artist even used seaweed to give the gator a greenish color. It looked very realistic.
Wow. Yeah, I'd be freaked out too. I mean, especially after we had that story about the ladies floating down the river and getting close to an alligator.
Jessica! It's an alligator! Oh, it's hissing. It's hissing at her! Oh my God!
Happy National Wine Day.
Whoop, whoop.
Maybe wait till later to celebrate. In the meantime, we've got a few wine facts for you.
Red wine is our favorite type of wine, followed by white and then rosé. The most popular reds are Merlot, Cabernet, Pinot, and Red Zinfandel.
Red or white?
I'm more of a white or rosé fan.
Same.
I like red with food. So, like, if you offer me a glass of red wine with, like, a nice steak dinner, I'll be like, yeah, sure. But I don't like just drinking it on its own.
I find red wine gives me heartburn sometimes. Maybe it's the type of wine. How many glasses do you usually have in one sitting? 74% say one or two. 9% say they usually take down a full bottle themselves, which on average works out to about 5 glasses.
Ooh. That's a lot of wine in one sitting. Hey, the average person drinks over 3 gallons of wine a year, and that number's been going up nonstop for decades. 50 years ago, we drank half that much.
I'd love the stats of the last 3 years. How many people were drinking a lot more wine during the pandemic, being at home? The number one thing we consider when picking out a bottle of wine is the price. 2/3 say it's a big factor. Brand name is next, and then alcohol percentage. But how much does a good bottle of wine cost? 42% say anything over $10 qualifies as a nice bottle.
Well, not the $2 Chuck like Carly Pierce sings about?
You were just
Because
saying?
that is legit a thing in the States. You can buy a $2 Chuck.
You got to hide that wine. Bad mistakes.
And finally, in a blind taste test, do you think you could tell the difference between a cheap bottle and a more expensive bottle of wine? Only 36% of people think that they could. And here's the thing. I've heard of some wine clubs that have done this. And they're like, people choose this cheap, the $2 Chuck, thinking it's the expensive, $300 bottle of wine.
Isn't that interesting?
And these are expert wine tasters.
All based on taste, right? So the first time I ever had wine, I was in college. And so where the college was, it was up on top of this hill in North Bay. And so you had to take a bus down to get any groceries or anything. So I'd gone with one of the guys. I was in a house with 5 other guys. So it was six people. And he was like, well, I'm going to go get groceries. Why don't you, jump on the bus with me? That was, by the way, my first time on the bus. And I was trying to figure out how to make it stop.
Well, that's such a little country bumpkin.
Wasn't I, though?
House.
So we went to this grocery store that also had a wine store. And he said, oh, why don't we grab some wine? And I'm like, okay, I know nothing about it, right? So the lady, very, very nice, very well-dressed, older woman, she's showing us the various wines. And finally, this guy just goes, I don't want those. I just want to get drunk. And she had a look on her face of absolute disgust and just kind of pointed to one area. I think you want these ones. Probably high alcohol content.
Here's the cheapest bottles we have.
Please don't drink it on the way home, boys. You might pass out. We've got an amazing story for you about a former soldier that's made history.
Yeah, so he is from Nepal, and he was serving a tour of duty in Afghanistan 13 years ago when he lost both of his legs to an IED. But he's just made history by scaling Mount Everest. He used some special prosthetics that he has with spikes to help him climb, and he made it to the top last Friday.
First thing I did was skydiving, and when I landed safely on the ground, I realized that, you can do the things even you don't have legs. I found that, nothing is impossible. It's just different way of doing the things. So let's try Everest.
And I mean, it's not like he's always had this amazing attitude. He says he went into a deep depression after the injury and started drinking a lot. But then he decided to keep living. As you heard him say, he went skydiving. Then he got involved in Paralympic sports and then started climbing mountains.
And now he's climbed Everest, and he's actually the first person ever to climb Everest after losing both legs above the knee. And in case you're wondering, his motto is, nothing's impossible. You just have to adapt.
Now his big plan next, to go back to Afghanistan, to the spot where he lost his legs, so he can say thank you. He said he would have never climbed Everest if it hadn't happened, adding, quote, whatever happens, it happens for good.
Wow, I don't think I could have that type of perspective after suffering such a catastrophic injury that has changed your life. But
you'd like to think you could, but I don't know, right? Or can you be as strong as this? But maybe this is just a reminder for all of us in those moments when you're like, I don't want to do this. Think about what he's been able to accomplish and overcome.
And I think it's also a great reminder that it's never too late to turn things around, and turn your life around. It's never too late. I mean, you think, oh, I'm in my, I'm not young anymore. I'm not in my 20s. I can't change my life. I can't pivot, change careers, do something different. You can.
Yeah, even if it's not physical and it's something else going on in your life right now. Listen to what he had to say one more time. I love how he phrases it.
First thing I did was skydiving, and when I landed safely on the ground, I realized that, you can do the things even you don't have legs. I found that, nothing is impossible. It's just different way of doing the things. So, let's try Everest.
And now it's time for
1, 2, 3, 4.
It's random.
Is that a fact?
Is that a fact?
4 random facts.
Dolphins can put one side of their brain to sleep as they swim while the other side remains alert. Then they can switch, putting the other side to sleep.
Yeah, well, I guess, got to stay away from the sharks.
I would argue that there's some people walking around today with half their brain asleep.
Or their whole brain.
Any given day.
Hey, the original title for Michael Jackson's hit song Thriller was supposed to be Midnight Man. They made a good choice in changing it.
The praying mantis? Pretty creepy thing. And this is even creepier. It's the only insect that can turn its head and look over its shoulder. So while you're about to step on it, it can turn around and look at you. Don't do that, please.
Yeah, like that doesn't freak you out.
No kidding.
And finally, if you feel like your stress is up and your heart rate's elevated, there's something you can do to bring that down. Smiling. It can lower your heart rate and your stress level.
Why are you smiling like that?
I just like to smile. Smiling's my favorite.
Make work your favorite.
Today's
1, 2,
4.
So random.
random.
Give the public the facts.
4 random facts.
So when you think about craft singles, what's your biggest complaint other than maybe
They're
flavor,
terrible.
perhaps?
I was like, unless it's in a grilled cheese sandwich
Right.
or like you're melting it on top of a burger, like what's the point?
Well, is it that you can't figure out how to open them? Kraft says the top complaint they get is people struggling to open the clear wrapper of a Kraft single.
So they're going to redesign it. Going to add texture to the flap so that your fingers can feel where the opening is. They're also going to be making the wrappers thicker and sturdier so they can be opened without tearing.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes too.
I really feel like this is just an excuse for them to jack the price up even more.
Well, let's
Why
hope
not?
that's not
Everything
the
else
case.
has gone up.
The new wrappers will be out later this year, along with some new exterior packaging and that kind of thing too. So look forward to seeing what that looks like. Not looking forward to a higher price.
You've been listening to Dave and Cheryl's favorite moments of the week.